It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe, and we take your questions. I am your host, Ryan, and our guest this week is writer, editor, and publisher of Silverline Comics. Please welcome Roland Mann to the program. Roland, how are you?
I am well. Good morning or good afternoon. Good morning in most of the places, most of the U.S., right?
Yeah, it's good. It's morning, afternoon, it's nighttime anywhere in the world right now, so you never know. We're covering all the time zones here in our universe that we know of. And thank you so much for being with us here, Roland. And I want to thank you for being with us. If you have any questions for Roland Mann during any portion of the show, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the live chat. Our producer is going to be keeping an eye on it as we go throughout the course of the show. But to start things off here, Roland, how were you introduced to the world of comics? In other words, what were some of the first comics you remember reading growing up?
Oh man. So I wasn't a reader as a kid. I'd rather be outside. I'd come home after school and I would right outside playing in the dirt, throwing, I live right next to a pasture. So I would often go out there and throw rocks at the cows. But I wanted to be outside. Didn't read, and as a result, I kind of fell behind in school. And my mom, brilliant woman that she is, was seeking a way to get me involved in reading. And I used to go shopping with her all the time. That was one of the things that even as an older teenager, that was one of the things I did. I went grocery shopping with her, mostly so I could push the cart, I think. But one day, as a youngster, I'm standing there, and we're standing there in a shopping center, and they used to have the spinner racks everywhere, and I spot this comic book, and I'm like, how kids are. I'm like, oh, Mom, can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it? And in her brilliance, on the spot, she cuts me a deal. She says, I will. She said, you can have this on one condition. I'm like, oh, well, whatever, Mom, whatever. She said, you read it and then tell me what you read. Tell me what the story is. And so I'm like, oh, of course, Mom, of course. So she buys it for me. I read it and gobble it up. And of course, it was continued. And so I wanted to know what happened. It's like, Mom, I don't know what happens. Can we buy the next one? Well, on the same condition that, you read it and you tell me what. So she did that for several months. And those first comics I got were the Avengers. And then right after that, I started buying Spider-Man. My mom started buying Spider-Man, I should say. Sure. And I was reading it, and I was hooked. The first Avengers that I got, the first storyline I can tell you now, was the Steve Englehart and George Perez run. So I came in at a good time. They were telling the Squadron Supreme. I don't know if you know that story or not, but they were telling the Squadron Supreme storyline around issues 140, 41, 42, 43, something like that. So I was hooked. Vision was my favorite Avenger. So I tell people the Vision, even though a lot of people didn't know who the Vision was until the movie came out, the Age of Ultron a few years ago, and I'm like, man, Vision's been my jam since about 1975. 74 probably 74, 75, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah. There you go. Yeah, you were Vision cool before it was cool to know who Vision, to now know who Vision is, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I kind of messed up the wording of that, but yeah,
I was. Though.
But you know what I mean? Like you were cool. You already knew that Vision was cool before the rest of the world knew he was cool. Yep. So you had a leg up on the competition, so to speak.
Listen, I had a Vision T-shirt in high school, but part of it was because literally it was back in the day. It wasn't cool to be a geek, right? And so I didn't want to wear a Spider-Man shirt because that was everybody kind of knew Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, and so I didn't want to wear any of those because I knew that I'm not a little guy, so I'm not one of these people. I didn't get picked on. I got made fun of a little bit from some of because I was I was an athletic guy, so I played on the sports team. So some of the other athletic guys made fun of me, but no one really bullied me or anything like that. But still, I wasn't. I had decided I'm not going to invite it on myself. I'm not going to wear Spider-Man, right? So I would seek out things that they didn't know, So I had a Vision shirt and I had a Black Knight T-shirt, and I also had an Alpha Flight shirt. Nobody knew who Alpha Flight was, right? So they could look at me and like, oh, that's a comic book thing, clearly, right? But they didn't know who it was, so they're not going to say, oh, look, you like Spider-Man and Batman, oh, right? They didn't know who Black Knight was. They didn't know who the Vision was.
No, there you go. So I guess it's fair to say you were a combination of Andrew Clark and Brian from The Breakfast Club. You're a mixture of the jock and the geek, right?
Yeah.
You're a mixture of Emilio Estevez's character and Anthony Michael Hall's character, right?
Yeah.
Is that how it goes?
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry. I may be dating the person or individual who may be watching or listening to this episode. But listen, age is just a number, and 1985 was a great year, period. So no shame in that. Let's be perfectly honest here. Goodness gracious. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I'm getting sort of like Andrew Clark and Brian vibes here from TV, Breakfast Club, but that's just me. I mean, listen, if anyone has any thoughts on that, let us know in the comments. And if you agree or disagree, that's fine too. There's no worries about that. But even so, what would you say are some of your favorite comic book based movies or TV series, past or present?
Clearly, The Avengers,
which just turned 10 this year. The first film.
Yeah. The Avengers is one of those things, and we could talk about for a long time whether the Avengers is true to the comics or not, that kind of thing. But one of the things that the Avengers does is it captures a lot of the spirit of the comic book. We could probably nitpick, this wasn't like that in the comic book, this wasn't like that. But it was one of those things, I walked out of the movie saying, that was a lot of fun. That was the Avengers. And I'll tell you a short story about it. So I was living in Oxford, Mississippi when the first movie came out. Okay. My daughter was she was in high school. So she was, I don't know, 16, maybe something like that. And she was, so the theater was going to release it at Thursday night, at 12:01. And because they couldn't release it, on Thursday, they had to release it on Friday. So me and a friend of mine and my family and his family, we said, we're going to go and see it at release, right? We're going to be one of the first ones to see the first showing. And so we're standing in line. It's 11:30, something like that. My daughter was participating in the parking lot there of the theater. They were having a Relay for Life. Do you know what Relay for Life is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we've done that. I mean, that happens all around the country, but yes, I am familiar with the event.
Yeah. So she was participating in the Relay for Life event as a performer on the stage that they were doing there while people were, walking.
Sure.
And a bunch of her friends were there, and it was a big community thing. People coming out to support Relay for Life and that kind of thing. And so we're standing in the line, and my daughter comes up to me and she says, "Hey," she had like 3 or 4 of her friends with her, right? So she comes up to me and she said, "Hey, Dad, my friends are going to go do this. Can I join them?" And I'm like, "Here's the deal. They're about to open these doors for this movie. I have been waiting 30 years for this movie. So when these doors open, I'm going in whether you're here or not. You are welcome to go do it, right? But I'm going in." And she looked at me, she looked at her friends, she looked at me, and she looked back to her friends, and she said, "Y'all go ahead. I'm gonna stay with my dad."
Well, in the words of our friendly neighborhood Grail Knight, you have chosen wise.
Right, yeah.
I would totally agree. I mean, this is it's a monstrous event, and it only happens once in a lifetime. So you got to go big or go home here, Roland.
Yeah. And I'm a fan. So, I mean, obviously I like I tend to like the comics, the movies of the comics that I liked as well. Sure. So Spider-Man and the Avengers are probably the Avengers family of movies, Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man, are probably amongst my favorites.
Sure. There you go. There you go. Yeah, good choices too.
Yeah.
And once again, this goes back to something we spoke about earlier. Not only did the Avengers turn 10 this year, but the original Spider-Man film from Sam Raimi turned 20
Good grief.
this year.
Wow.
Yes, it's a true story. And by the way, we did do an anniversary watch along of those films with our friends for both Spider-Man and the Avengers, which you can find on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel at It's Nerd Culture. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. You've heard it before, but definitely go back and check that out, Roland, when you have a chance, because we got into some interesting debates, some things, words were said, some not so nice things, and we went on some random tangents too during our Avengers watch along. So if you go to the Avengers tape and watch that back, it got pretty heated. It was a lot of fun, but it got heated. I'm thinking to myself, we're supposed to be focusing on this film, but yet we go off on different tangents that focus within the. Don't worry, I mean, they're still within the nerd community.
Sure,
but they don't have so much to do with the Avengers 2012. They have more so to do with it was May the 4th, so we got into some Star Wars debates and other. But it's all it's all nerdum stuff. So if you want to dive into that, go back and watch those videos after you're finished watching this wonderful interview that we are currently conducting with Roland Mann here on And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this video with all 200 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode. I guarantee it. With that, and if you have any questions for Roland Mann, let us know in the comments, let us know in the live chat. Take them as they come in. Good choices there when it comes to comic book-based movies or TV series. So when did you decide to become a writer, an editor, and a publisher? How did that all start? How did that happen?
That was really kind of quite by accident.
Just like Bruce Banner getting hit by gamma rays, that was an accident, right?
And not quite.
I'm kidding.
So I'm a first generation college student, right? And so I didn't decide that I liked to write. So all through junior high and high school, I was making my own comics just because it was it was an outlet for me. A lot of the stuff that I did, like as a 7th grader, it was just swipes of the Marvel. I was a Marvel zombie as a kid. I did not read DC until '86, and when they had the Crisis, right?
Yeah. Speaking of George Perez again.
Speaking of George Perez, yeah. I just found them too confusing. The multiverse, right, was of DC was too confusing for me. And so I just didn't buy them. And when they had Crisis and put everything in one world, I'm like, okay, I'm on board now. I can get on board with that, right? So I started buying a whole bunch of DCs then. Anyway, that was a tangent, right? And so I used to just kind of do my own, just because I don't know. I was as a kid, I'm drawing in class instead of paying attention to the teacher, but I didn't know, that was just a thing you did. It's kind of like, oh, you play baseball on the weekends and you drew, comic books in class, right? I mean, it was just something, right? But it wasn't until high school, as a senior, I took a creative writing class from. I was looking for credits that were easy, I thought, and that I didn't have, because I already had all my credits, so I could have graduated. But I was just looking for something to kind of fill the time, right? And I really liked the teacher who was teaching the class, and so I took the class, and she was incredibly encouraging. And I have the beautiful thing about it is I got to, thanks to social media, I reconnected with her several years ago and got to actually thank her for this. So yeah, she encouraged me, even though I know my stories had to have been crap back then. She was super encouraging, hey, keep doing this. You should do this. You should do that. And she kind of fostered a love of writing for me. But the problem is I didn't know what to do with it. It's like, I didn't know how to, I didn't know where to go. How do you write? How do you make money? How do you make a life as a writer? I didn't know anyone. I didn't, it was just, I didn't know what to do. So when I went to college as a computer science. That was my major for 2.5 years was computer science. I was studying to be a programmer. Hated it. Couldn't stand it. I love computers. Don't get me wrong. I like technology. I love computers, but it had all this math and I couldn't do the math. And the thing that had happened though, is because of that teacher, I had really been writing. I'd just been writing all the time. And so my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she said, well, why don't you change your majors and be a creative writing major? And so, dude, I debated this back and forth because I still didn't know, what am I going to do with a creative writing major? I don't know. I really want to write comic books. It's what I was writing prose and stuff like that. But it's like, I really want to write comic books, but I live in Mississippi. How are you going to write comic books in Mississippi? And I didn't really want to move to New York. So I did. I made the leap and shifted over to creative writing. Still didn't know what I was going to do. Still didn't know how I was going to do it. Right. But this would have been about 1986. So if you know anything about your comic book history, 1986 also saw the publication of this little comic called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They blew up like crazy, and they weren't Marvel, they weren't DC, right? And suddenly this whole world of independent comics opened up to me. It's like, wow, all these other people are making comics and they're not at Marvel and DC. So I dove heavy into the independent comic scene, buying stuff like you wouldn't believe. And one thing led to another, and suddenly I'm submitting stuff out right and left. Meet guy who becomes one of my best friends over the years, a guy by the name of Stephen Butler. And we put a comic book together, try to self-publish it. We fail with that, but we get picked up by a publisher, and one thing leads to another. And here we are, 30 years later.
Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. Well, that is an incredible story. Thank you for sharing with us. That is amazing stuff. What would you say are some of the rewards about being a writer? What do you think?
So the rewards about being a writer is, I think one of, and this is what you see when you see writers asking these questions on social media. I love to hear that something I have written has put a smile on somebody's face. I love for someone to come up and tell me, I read your story, I really enjoyed it. Are you going to write another one? When you hear that, are you going to write another one? Is there a sequel? Is there a part 2? That just makes your heart go, because otherwise they wouldn't ask if there's a sequel if they didn't really enjoy it, right? And so that's probably one of my favorite things of emotional rewards about doing that. But there's also something about when you get a comic, a new publication. There's something about holding it in your hands and realizing, I helped make this. I was part of a creative team that made this comic that people can now enjoy.
Oh, well, there you go. It's kind of it's in a different sort of way. It's kind of saying I had a vision, no pun intended,
Right,
and
yeah, right.
I had a dream, and I made
dream.
this a reality. And you're holding
Yep.
it in the palm of your own hand, just like Doc Ock does in Spider-Man 2. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand,
Which is the best Spider-Man movie, by the way.
Oh, okay. All right. Listen,
I'll stand on that
disagree
rock.
with you. I would not disagree with you because I did a rewatch of some of these films during the course of the lockdown.
Yeah.
And I realized, man, Spider-Man 2, it packs a punch. It's pretty darn
really does.
It's really darn good. And Alfred Molina was a big part of that.
Man, he was good. Yeah.
Such a great actor.
There's a lot of good things. You could point out a lot of good things in all the Spider-Man movies. But Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock,
Yes.
it doesn't hurt that Doc Ock is one of my favorite Spidey villains, right?
Mhm.
But that's probably one of the best comic book movies of all. I just not just Spider-Man, but of all.
Yeah.
It captures so much. The fight between Doc Ock and Spidey in the city, Spidey on the train.
On the train, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much goodness in that movie that it pulled right. I mean, it's not an adaptation. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just pulled from the comic book pages. That's such a good movie. God, you want to go watch it right now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that some individuals out there who rank comic book movies would put it in somewhere between the top 10 and the top 20 of all time. I mean, granted, we've been inundated with comic book movies for the last 15 years, mostly because of the MCU and other studios. Don't get me wrong, but the MCU has been a very big influence on the other studios and other properties around the world. But yes, Spider-Man's one of the OGs, so you got to give credit where credit's due. So Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, still two solid films. We don't talk about Spider-Man 3.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. I mean, there may have been some decent parts in that movie I remember from 2007, but overall, I'm thinking, what was that?
Listen, I still argue that Sandman should be not. I don't want a Sandman movie, but I think I want a Spider-Man Sandman movie because Hayden Church.
Thomas Hayden Church. Yeah.
Thomas Hayden Church, yeah. Dude rocks it as Sandman. And I would love to see an entire Spider-Man movie devoted to him as Sandman.
There you go.
I mean, Sandman was a great villain in Spider-Man. So, and he's a great Sandman on film. So I would love to see an entire movie devoted to him. We don't talk about Spider-Man 3.
Exactly. Maybe one of these days, Thomas Hayden Church's character, or his iteration of the Sandman will be redeemed. So
I hope so. Yeah, that would be nice.
You never know. Would you like to see somewhere down the line maybe an adaptation? Maybe not so much a direct adaptation because I know Hollywood, they take creative liberties with stories all the time. Yeah. Would you like to see bits and pieces of the story known as Spider-Man: Kraven's Last Hunt put on film? Oh
man, a great story. Yeah. So I don't know about that. Okay. And here's my problem. I think that because you kind of alluded to it, is that Hollywood always makes changes, right? And anytime I've seen a direct adaptation, I've never been happy. There's nothing I've ever seen that says yes, that was great. I would rather see them be inspired by. I'd rather see them bring Kraven to the screen and then do something different with it. I don't want to see them do an adaptation because I've already got the comic book and it's great. I don't want to go to the film and be disappointed because I know that I will be. Does that make sense to you?
No, yeah. No, it does make sense. Yeah, they take creative liberties, but if something were to happen where they do put some of that potentially on film, it would be nice, but it may be difficult because
I would love to see Kraven on film. Absolutely.
Yeah, it just depends on who they cast. Because casting for Kraven's that's a huge I mean, any casting for any character is an undertaking.
You're right. Yeah.
So
yeah, someone told me this yesterday at the MegaCon that Tom Holland was done with Spider-Man. Yeah, that kind of surprised me. I just assumed that he had to sign a contract, like a 3-4 film contract, like they all do.
They all do, yeah. And I thought he was signed for 6 films. Including his MCU appearances, I think he has fulfilled a 6-picture deal. So then again, he might be done. I don't know. I mean, I don't have all the information in front of me. I'm not, in those boardrooms of the executive offices of Hollywood, so I have no idea. Plus, the relationship between Sony and Marvel is so touchy-feely, and sometimes things work, sometimes things doesn't. I mean, look what they're doing. They have Venom movies, they have Carnage movies that have nothing to do with Spider-Man. I mean, they make references to the Tom Holland films, but Spider-Man isn't in the movie. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you make a Venom movie without Spider-Man? How can you make a Scorpion movie without Spider-Man? How can you make a Shocker movie without Spider-Man?
Wait, they're making a Shocker movie?
No. I'm just saying, speaking hypothetically, how can you make certain movies that focus on different characters without Spider-Man? I just don't.
You're absolutely right. And this is my biggest problem with the Venom movie is like, okay, there's some neatness in it, but where's Spider-Man? You can't have Venom without Spider-Man, and that was my problem. I will be honest with you. I honestly expected to see Spider-Man, even just briefly, in the first Venom movie.
Yeah, it would have been nice because Venom is an iconic Spider-Man villain who I enjoyed watching as a kid during the 1990s when Fox Kids was a thing, and Fox Kids was one of the best things since Sliced Bread, brother. Yeah. So you had Venom Saga in that, and that worked. But then again, that was animation with live action. That's completely 2 separate mediums.
But you don't get Venom without Spider-Man. You literally don't get Venom without Spider-Man.
It's a symbiote. It's a suit.
Right.
I'm thinking, I'm not sure how you do that. By the way, Abundant Health Services is here with us. She says, Happy New Health Day, y'all. Woohoo. It's good to see you. I believe it's Shanti. Shanti, it's so good to see you. And she also says, I thought the same thing about the Venom movie, bro. Where was Spider-Man? I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's a valid point.
Yeah, I don't either. And I don't know, I don't know why they wouldn't work hard. Again, I don't need him in the whole movie.
And the other thing is, the relationship between Sony and Marvel is very touchy-feely, and there's only so many things they can do with either studio. That's another messy thing.
Yeah.
It's very, very messy. It's complicated. Also, Shanti says, me too. How do you not have the crossover
Right.
between one character and the next?
Right.
It's true. I don't get it either. You know what? Maybe one of these days, the executives will sit down, figure out, hey, Spider-Man movies, they need villains, right? Well, let's put Spider-Man in with the villains and not just have them be villain origin stories. Come on, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen Morbius yet.
Neither have I. I can't speak to that. So
yeah.
I'm curious. I just haven't seen it.
I did see Venom, and I did see Venom Carnage.
Venom, Let There Be Carnage, yes.
Yeah.
And Roland's rolling his eyes at me thinking, Ryan, can we move on to the next question, please? Yes, we can. But that being said, on the flip side of the coin, though, here, Roland, what would you say are some of the challenges about being a writer?
Oh man. Finding an audience is one of the biggest ones. We live in a day and age where our technology gives anybody and everybody a platform. And so there's a lot of noise, as anybody would know. It doesn't matter the platform you're on, whether you Facebook or Twitter or whatever, Instagram. There's noise, right? And by noise, I just mean there's everybody everywhere. So as a writer, how do you connect with your audience today? Because anyone can do it, right? You don't have to hold a degree to write. You don't have to have any special training to write a book or make a comic. It's one of the professions that you got to go study for years and get certificates and diplomas to be a doctor. You have to do this to be a lawyer. There are things that you have to do. Anybody can sit down at a keyboard and call themselves a writer. So one of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to get your work noticed by anybody, right? How do you find your audience? How do you go where they are so they know that they can read your content?
That's very true.
That's one of the biggest ones. As a teacher, I'll say one of the biggest challenges I see for a lot of my students is how do you decide what to read now? So I believe that you can't be an adequate writer if you don't read, right? You got to read if you're going to write. And so there's so much stuff out there, and I think I'm probably fixing to step on some toes. And so if I do, I almost apologize. Fan fiction is the worst thing that could have ever happened to writers. When I hear students say, "Oh, I write fan fiction," I said, "Please don't ever say that again." Serious publishers never ever take fan fiction, or I shouldn't say never ever. There are always exceptions, right? I rarely ever take
50 Shades.
What? You're right. Yeah. No, you're right.
Which we will not get into, but that was a thing that actually did occur. It was fan fiction, and then they bought it, published it, and then there became 3 movies that everyone seemed to go and see every Valentine's Day for the last 3 years. And I don't understand why. Don't get me started. It's a rabbit hole that we will not go down here on And I Quote. But Roland, please continue.
Yeah. But publishers often will not take if you list fan fiction on your resume as a writer, a publisher is going to make the assumption, rightly or wrongly, and maybe that's another debate you can have, but they're going to make the assumption that you have no original ideas of your own. And this is a problem that I have when I hear someone's writing fan fiction. My first thought is like, why? Why don't you create something? Don't just copy something. Create something. Be inspired by it. Absolutely, be inspired by the stuff that you read. But I don't have a whole. And like I said, I know I'm probably stepping on some toes somewhere, but I don't have a whole lot of respect for fan fiction. I to my knowledge, I've only ever read in completion one, and that was Larry Niven wrote fan fiction back in the 1970s. Do you know who Larry Niven is?
I'm not 100%. I may or may not have heard the name, and I'm not sure. Who is
this?
He's
a well-established science fiction novelist or science fiction writer. Okay, and he wrote a Superman fan fiction in the 1970s.
Oh.
Yeah, it made the rounds as photocopies when I saw it. Yeah, this was pre-internet, of course.
Sure.
I didn't see it in the 70s. Let me rephrase that. I didn't see it until probably late 80s. But the way I saw it was someone handed me a photocopy. Hey man, this is you need to read this Larry Niven thing. It's really good, right? And I read that. So and it was really good, but it's Larry Niven, so
I can understand that. Wow, boy, if that's not going to get thoughts and feelings in the comments, whether we're live or if you're watching the replay of this episode, or if you're listening to it, we'll definitely get some thoughts. Once again, we're talking with Silverline Comics editor and publisher Roland Mann here on And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this video with all 300 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode. I guarantee. We're getting some more comments here in the chat from our good friend Shanti. She says, I feel like Tobey Maguire in the film known as Spider-Man 3 set up a potential great Venom crossover, so they had a perfect way to do it, question mark. Maybe. I will say the Venom look was okay, but the casting with Topher Grace was just, no, that is not in any way, shape, or form. What's the expression? Hashtag not my Venom.
Right.
It's not my Venom. I'm telling you. I don't know what they were thinking with the casting of that. I know they wanted someone to match physically and maybe the looks of Tobey Maguire for this, iteration of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm thinking, come on, Sam Raimi, you hit it out of the park twice, and you're having a little bit of creative. Granted, it wasn't completely Sam Raimi's fault with Spider-Man 3. The studio had some interference on Spider-Man 3's part. Once again, that's a rabbit hole we're not going to go into.
Yeah. I think I agree with it, though. Yeah. I think I agree.
Go ahead,
I think it was a great setup. I think they could have used that to kick off, a Venom story, but they didn't, and
it just didn't work out that way.
No, it didn't.
Sadly, it's just one of those things. And then Shanti goes on to say, I saw the most recent film known as Morbius. I was entertained, but mad at the after credit scene or clues. It was bipolar. Sorry. I have mixed feelings for it overall, but I'm glad that I saw it. She's talking about Morbius, the current film that stars Jared Leto in the title role.
I mean, the thing about it is I will probably see it. It is a Spider-Man character.
I'm still curious.
And as I noted earlier, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and so I will. I can't think of a reason that I wouldn't see it. I will probably see it, but I am having watched the trailers. I am going in with not high expectations.
Yeah,
medium expectations, I should say.
It's completely fair. And Shanti goes on to say, right, the casting of Venom, but it was a setup to kick it off. I think she's going back to what we said earlier about Spider-Man 3. So
yeah, I agree.
There you go. You never the things that happen, the things that didn't happen. Once again, that's a whole other discussion for a whole other kind of show. But listen, we're having a good time here. We hope that you who are watching or listening to this episode are having a good time with us as well. But let's dive into something here, Roland. You know how they say that in every dark cloud or every dark storm, there's a silver lining? Well, let's dive into that a little bit. This right here, Silverline Comics. How did Silverline Comics come to be? How did it all happen?
Yeah, so when I mentioned earlier that when you asked me about how kind of it happened for me, when I was in college, I met Stephen Butler, and we decided that we were going to do our own thing. We, inspired by the Turtles' success as an independent, black and white company, we decided, well, we can do our own thing. So we came up with a company. We came up with a couple of books, a company name, I should say. And we solicited a comic book, and we went to get it printed, and we didn't have the money to get it printed. So we went to banks and asked them for loans, for a business loan to print our comic. But you got to remember, this is Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and comic books are not a thing, or certainly weren't in the in the 1980s. They weren't a thing in Mississippi. As far as publishers, companies, right? I mean, you can find them at all the 7-Elevens, but the bank loan people would just look at us and say, you want money to do what? You want to print a comic book? I never given a loan for someone to print a comic book before, but here's the thing, and I still have them in my file. In case anyone ever questions me, it's like, I still have the orders. I can show you. we had the purchase orders from the distributors that said, we're going to order this many copies or we're going to pay you this much money, right? And all we wanted was a loan to print the comics so that we could ship them out, and then they would pay us, and then we would pay the loan back, right? We couldn't get a loan. We didn't have the money. And so we had to cancel the orders and we canceled the orders. And then we took what we had as far as the comic books that we made, and we sent them out to publishers. So said, hey, we tried to do this. We don't have the money. We need a home for our books, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we had already kind of established a studio of sorts. We had already kind of built the idea that we're going to have this cohesive thing. So the publisher that we found at the time said, you guys can't. I'm not going to publish you under your name. They're like, I'm the publisher. But what we can do is that we'll treat you guys as a studio. We're going to publish it under our imprint, but you guys can be a studio. So Steven and I sat down and said, well, okay, so we're not going to use our, clearly we didn't want to use the name that we had solicited as, and then canceled our orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had a different company name as a publisher. And so we said, well, what do we do? What do we want to do? If we're going to be this thing called a packager, right? What do we want to do? And Steve and I are both fans of the Silver Age of comic books. And so, yes, we're like, okay, so what we're going to be the Silverline of comics. That's what we're going to do for EF Graphics was the publisher. Like EF Graphics is going to be the publisher, but we're going to be their Silverline of comics. Right. And so that's Silverline was born that way. And we proceeded to package comics throughout the early 90s. For different publishers. EF Graphics went out of business, but we then went to Aircell, Adventure. We did some for Eternity. We did some books for Caliber Press before I got hired on as an editor then at Malibu Comics. And so the first iteration of Silverline was actually as a packager. And then it wasn't until after I left Marvel that I started Silverline back as a publisher. Yeah.
Wow. That is all right. Now I understand where the whole silver comes in.
Right. Yep.
Because there was gold, there was silver, there was bronze, and then whatever came after bronze, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I don't follow. Is it called the modern age of comics? I'm not sure.
Well, I think my understanding is that we're always in the modern age, right? That's just the way it works. We're always in the modern age, but what was the last age called? It's funny because I've seen the 90s, which is when I started as an editor. Sure. I've seen it called the Iron Age, and I've seen it called the Image Age. So because of Image,
the situation with Image Comics, and I believe it was Spawn, right?
Yeah, Spawn,
Todd
Wildcats,
McFarlane,
the Youngblood. Those were some of the first ones in '93. So.
That's where that came in.
I kind of like the Iron Age better. When did you start working in comics? I started working in the Iron Age.
Yeah, I was in the iron mines, man, making those comics. You know what I'm saying? We had the irons. We had to build them. It's almost like the story of Tony Stark built this suit from scraps.
Right.
In the desert. Remember that scene from 2008's Iron Man? Which, by the way, that film turns 15 next year. Who'd have thunk that?
Good grief.
I know.
Wow.
Are we getting too young for this stuff? I'm not really sure. By the way, Abundant Health Services chimes in. She says, I love this name origin story for you guys over there at Silverline Comics.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
She loves it. She is eating it up with a spoon, man. Well, that is just fan flippity flip. I mean, that's like finding solid gold. No, but more so, it's like finding silver. So good for you. Congratulations to you and your team at Silverline. Now, I know you put out a lot of titles over time. You got a lot of characters out there. Some of the names that spring to mind here. We're going to take a look at these in a moment. Hopefully, if I'm doing this in the wrong chronological order, I apologize. Okay. But this is one of the first things that came up here. Cat and Mouse.
Yeah.
Cat and Mouse from Silverline Comics. What exactly is Cat and Mouse, and what is going to happen with it moving forward?
Sure. So Cat and Mouse is a story of a guy who gets a telephone call from his ex-fiance, and she says, hey, my kid's sister's run away. Would you go get her and bring her home? Well, it's his ex-fiance, so he's not super excited about it, right? But he's studying to be a police officer, so he says, well, let me see what I can do. So he goes to New Orleans only to find out Kid's sister's been caught up in a human trafficking ring.
Oh.
So he has to figure out how to get her out of the human trafficking ring and get her back home. And yes, there are ninjas involved. Cat and Mouse is actually one of the first series that Silverline did in the late 1980s. It ran for 2 years as a black and white comic. It made the top 10 black and white comics for about half of the run. The highest that I'm aware of that we ever got was number 4. I actually have I clipped it out of the little newspaper to see. Comic Shop News used to run a top 10. I'm guessing they still do, but they used to run a top 10 black and white comics.
That's
and
right.
we made it to number 4 for, I can't remember which issue it was, but we made it to number 4, and we were in the top 10 for about half of the run.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that over the years, when I do conventions, people would, come up and say, "Hey, when are you bringing back Cat and Mouse? When are you bringing back Cat and Mouse? When are you bringing back Cat and Mouse?" So we finally brought back Cat and Mouse, right? And so this is you're looking at the cover for number 3 there. We are finishing up number 4. We're working to finish up number 4. Wubba Fett, who is the penciler for number 4, has just sent to me page 14, which means we've got I can't do math, 8 pages left to go for number 4, and then that will finish this mini series. We're going to do what we're doing at Silverline now is we basically do series of mini series, right? So this will be 4 issues. That way we can collect it into a trade because we know a lot of people like the trades.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm one of them.
No. It's okay. It's just that's the way it goes. But it's easier for us production wise to try to produce them in the smaller issues.
Oh, sure. Of course.
To get it out there, help maintain interest.
Marketing.
And then when we're done, we've already got the first issue of the next volume done.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, so
that's amazing.
So Cat and Mouse are basically a couple of street level heroes, inspired very much by comics like Daredevil and Batman and that kind of thing.
Good choices.
Yeah,
I mean, good inspirations. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to say one publisher is better than the next, but
no,
it's good. Everyone's inspired by something. It doesn't matter who you are, where you live in the world, what your culture is, what your background is. It doesn't matter. Everyone is inspired by someone or something.
Right.
And there's no shame in that too, because that's what gets the gears and the minds turning.
Yeah, those Frank Miller Daredevils were some of my first Daredevils to read.
Oh, really? There's some good ones, huh?
Yeah. I knew who Daredevil was, and I read him in he was with I think it was the Champions, and several other things.
Defenders.
The Defenders. Later on, he wasn't my Defenders though. My Defenders were the other team. But I didn't really read his solo book until the Frank Miller stuff. So
fair enough. Are you excited about the news that they're going to try to bring back Daredevil with a new series, but they're going to keep Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in Daredevil?
I think he did a great job as the Daredevil's. The Daredevil Netflix show is probably one of the better TV shows for Marvel characters. Yeah,
I would agree with you on that. I watched. I didn't watch all. I haven't watched all the seasons yet, but the seasons that I have watched, it's so good.
Season 2's not as good. Season 1 is great. Season 2 is good. Don't get me wrong. It
introduced the Punisher, so let's not watch what you say, Roland. It did introduce us to the Punisher.
I did not say it wasn't good. It wasn't as good as the first season.
Fair enough.
First season is just
we can
really,
be friends
really
again.
Good.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'll let you stick around for a a little while longer here.
All right, I appreciate that.
It's fine. No, it's okay. It's okay. I hear what you're saying. Some seasons get, some seasons grow, some seasons take it back a bit. Yeah. It's okay. It happens with every show that's ever been built.
But I think Charlie Cox is a fantastic Daredevil.
Great actor.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would venture to say, once again, talking with Silverline, editor and publisher here on, and I quote, known as Roland Mann. If you have any questions for him, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We will take it as they come in. And also make sure you're sharing this with all 400 of your closest friends. You're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode of And I Quote. I guarantee it. Another bunch of characters that have been thrown into the mix from, Silverline Comics here. Silverline team up between, I believe it's called the Champion and the Fury. So the Champion and the Fury, what exactly is that? And what can we expect to see from these characters within Silverline Comics moving forward?
So yeah, it's Champion and Miss Fury. That's
Oh, sorry.
actually no, that's okay. Miss Fury is so the story on this one is Champion was a character introduced in the original Cat and Mouse series. He appeared. I can't remember if John Medic was here. He would tell me. I think it was
John. Where are you? We need help on aisle 3.
Right. I think it was the 3rd issue. He shows up. Basically that's his first appearance in the 3rd issue of Volume 1 of Cat and Mouse. And then folks kind of asked about him some, and so while we began to develop him a little bit, and then he shows up in Silver Storm, which I did in the late 90s. There was a Silver Storm Volume 1 in the early 90s and the Silver Storm Volume 2 in the late 90s that I wrote. And he shows up there. He's been sent to New Orleans to try to stop Cat and Mouse, right? So that's how he kind of ends up in the Cat and Mouse world. Well, Miss Fury is a public domain character. You've probably seen, if you follow comic books, independent comics, you've seen several different versions of Miss Fury. But I happen to write the first so Miss Fury is the 1940s character. She was around the 1940s, created by Tart Mills. I happened to write the first non-Tart Mills Miss Fury miniseries in the early 90s when Malibu Comics got the rights to do it. So it was me and Mitch Bird, who's the artist and co-creator of Cat and Mouse. They were looking for something else for us to do. We went and did 4-issue Miss Fury miniseries. You can still find those. They're not hard to find. They printed a lot of copies of those. Lorene Haynes did some beautiful painted covers of those. Sure. And with Miss Fury being in the, I always felt I had more stories to tell about the character, and I didn't get around to doing it. So Miss Fury, after that miniseries, she went and showed up in The Protectors briefly that Malibu published. And so when we were looking at ways to kind of expand on what we were doing at Silverline, Peter Clinton said that, he was interested in drawing superheroes. I said, well, I'd love to do something with Miss Fury and Champion. We can get them down into New Orleans. And so you're basically going to see some good superhero fun here as Champion and Miss Fury both are just coming to New Orleans. Their paths cross as they encounter some villains down there. And, if anyone's ever read Marvel team-ups, they would know the way things happen. The two heroes get there, they have a clash, right? And then they end up teaming up together to do something. I would be lying if I told you that wasn't that model wasn't an inspiration for what we're doing here. So, but in the first issue that you're looking at, it's the setup, right? We're bringing them to New Orleans, getting their lives established, letting you know who they are. And we end this issue ends with a with a big cliffhanger. So, and the good news is, Peter Clinton, who should be having a baby today or tomorrow.
Hey, congratulations.
We've tried to convince him to name it Baby Silverline, but he says Mama won't go for that. He is almost finished with the second issue. So, and it looks really good.
It does.
And there will be a surprise guest star in the second issue. So,
really,
somebody that people have asked for. So, yep. So that's Champion and Miss Fury.
There you go. These are exciting times over there at Silverline Comics. Am I right?
Yeah, they really are. This
is a good looking cover too of the Champion and Miss Fury. I mean, look at this cover. This is telling you, hey, we're about to lay the smack down.
That's right.
We're ready to bring some law and order to this spot, whatever's going on. And you get some surprises thrown into the mix too. And it ends on a cliffhanger, because these days, Sydney, you gotta make a sequel. If anyone caught that reference from the 90s, there you go.
I should send you a copy of that. Roberta, the colorist for that, did an awesome job. I should send you a copy of that cover. She made a copy of it, and where the neon sign flashes in the back.
Oh, really?
Right? It
Okay.
looks so
That's
cool. and
all
we're like,
right.
and we're like, how can we print this? We want to be able to print this, but you can't print it, right? But she
Mm,
did make an animated, I think it's an animated GIF in which
sure.
which the neon sign flashes back there, and it looks so good.
Gee willikers. Yeah, that sounds great. Feel free to send that to me. We can talk more about that in the backstage area here. But with that, or excuse me, with that being said, gosh, so many wonderful things going on in the world right now, especially over at Silverline. Goodness gracious. Now, also something going on at Silverline. I'd like to bring this up here for a moment. You got a Kickstarter going on right now with what is known as the Science Fiction Extravaganza. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what is the current Kickstarter going on at Silverline?
Yeah. So the current Kickstarter is the Science Fiction Extravaganza. It's 3 complete comic books in one Kickstarter. And so if you are a fan of science fiction, this is the Kickstarter for you. We have Beyond the Stars, which is written by comics veteran Ron Fortier, who a lot of people will know Ron because he did work on the Green Hornet for Now Comics. And the artist is Andrea Bormida, an Italian artist who has had a long career in Italy, and Mike Belcher. It's the first of 6 issues. It's done, and Andrea has already done, I want to say, maybe half of number 2 as well. The next one then is The Obsoletes by not quite a rookie, but he's been working in comics for a couple of years. Wes Loker, he's the writer and letterer for this. The penciler is Aaron Humphreys, who Silverline fans will recognize did Friar Rush for us. The inker is Jose Fuentes. The colorist is Haley Martin, and Silverline fans will recognize Haley's name because she's the artist that worked with me on Bear. And it is the first of 4. And then the last one then is Krey, which is written by me. Now, Krey is one of our remix titles. So one of the things that we did in our conversation, you heard me mention black and white books a lot. So as an independent company in the 90s, most of what we did, almost all of what we did was in black and white. It's just the way independent companies function because the cost of printing color was too high. But technology has afforded us the ability to go back and color some of these. So fans will recognize that we've done, this is our 3rd one remix to start. The first one was Switchblade, in which we had that one digitally remastered and colored by Aidan Belcher. We just shipped out. Do I have a copy of it here? We just shipped out Sirens with Wolf Hunter. This Kickstarter was just fulfilled, and then this is Siren. As you can see, we slightly different logo up top identifies as one of our remix books, right? And so Sirens was the second one we did, and then now Krey is going to be the 3rd. Swiping me off there. So these were just books that we published in black and white in the 90s, and we have gone back and digitally doctored them up a little bit and have colored them. And Krey is one of those. Now, Krey is done by my good pal Stephen Butler. He was a penciler on that, and people will know Stephen because he did Web of Spider-Man, he did Silver Sable, he did Sonic the Hedgehog for several years. So Stephen's been around, done a lot of high-profile books that people will know. It was inked by Ken Branch, and it is being colored by, or it has been colored. I'm sorry, the issue's finished. It has been colored by Jeremy Kahn, the interiors. So it the Beyond the Stars, Obsoletes, 22 pages. I think Krey was 24 back at the time. So you're looking at close to 70 pages of story for this Kickstarter.
Congratulations on that. Wish you the best of luck. I know the Kickstarter has only got about 32 hours to go.
Yep.
So if you want to contribute to it, back it, as they
Please
say
do.
in the Kickstarter lingo.
We are funded. We have made our funded goal.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. But we're chasing some stretch goals. We're trying to get us a trading card and a bookmark. Those are the next two. The next 2 stretch goals we're looking for. We already got the first stretch goal, which was a bunch of digital rewards
Nice.
And so we're still chasing some stretch goals, and so we got 32 hours to get there. The other thing is, if we can get to 120 backers, everyone who backed at the physical level is going to have a chance at. Do I have it in here? I don't think I actually have it in here. I was going to say, one of the things we try to do on our campaigns is have a lot of original art. These pages are available, but this is not the one that I'm talking about.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So this is original art that's all part of the campaign. This is some Krey pages from Steven.
Woo.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. Oh, I love this page here.
Look at that.
Right. Yeah. So, whoops, there's a note there.
Passing notes through the classroom again.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Put those down.
So we've got there's a lot of original art that's still available as part of the Kickstarter. But one of the things we did is Dean Zachary, fan favorite Dean Zachary, penciled a cover for each of the books. And
that's amazing.
So we snagged the Obsoletes cover that he did. And we said, if we can get to 120 backers, if you actually click on the updates there, right at the top of the page.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let's see, where am I?
Just down, just a little bit, down, just right there. Yeah,
Oh.
and then click on that. I think it's the second update. Yeah, not goal, but more exciting stuff. That one. Click on that. Read more.
Oh, this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll show you the original art. So if we get to 120 backers, those are the digital rewards that were won. There we go. That piece right there. That piece of original art will be. We'll randomly select one of the physical backers. Will get that piece of art. We got to get to 120 backers though.
Oof.
Yeah, get to 120 backers and some lucky physical tier. Obviously, if you're back to the digital, we thank you. But you won't be eligible to get that physical piece of artwork from Dean. So we're only about, last I saw, we were, I think, at about 106 backers. So we're only about, 14 backers away from being able to do that. So we got 32 hours, still a very good possibility that we'll reach that goal and be able to have this artwork find a home.
Absolutely. So yeah, hashtag support your friends, support indie creators and publishers of all kinds. So definitely check this out, and links to where you can find Roland Mann and all the stuff that he's been up to, including the Kickstarters, are located within the description of this video. So make sure you check those out. Back the Kickstarter if you can, and if you can't back it, share it, because as a wise person once said, sharing is caring.
That's right.
So please keep that in mind as we go along throughout the course of our lifetimes, I should say. Wow, that is incredible stuff. So after this Kickstarter is completed, and you guys, you put that in the can, everything's set to go with that to a certain degree moving forward. What is the plan for Silverline Comics overall moving forward? It's basically the way of saying the guidance counselor sits you down in your office. What's your 5-year plan?
Yeah.
What's your 10-year plan? What are the plans for Silverline Comics as a whole moving forward here, Roland?
Sure. We at the end of last year, we decided we were making so many books. I mean, the as terrible as the pandemic was
Still kind of is.
It still kind of is, yeah. We were able to, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people saw this. People got creative, right? And we made a lot of books during this time, and we're still in the process of making them. So we ended up with a lot of titles. Folks who've been following us know that our first couple of Kickstarters, I want to say the first 3, we just kickstarted a single book. But then suddenly we're like, hey, we don't have enough months. We need to do 2 books, right? Well, this is the first one that we're doing 3 books with. So for at least the next foreseeable handful of Kickstarters, we're going to be kickstarting 3 books. We've already got the next Kickstarter slated on our schedule. Actually, we got the next 2 slated on the schedule. If you give me 15 seconds, I'll give you the dates for those even. July 7th through the 24th and September 1 through 18 are the dates for our next Kickstarters. And we're pretty sure we know which books are going to be in the next one, and tentatively in the September one as well. So So this is exciting because for me, because it demonstrates we are making these comics and we're producing them. And I know this is a concern that a lot of people have when they start backing crowdfunders, whether it be Indiegogo or Kickstarter. It's like, I don't know whether I'm going to get my book or not. Well, one thing I'm quick to say is that with the one with this one right here that I just showed you, we are now 17 for 17 fulfilling our Kickstarters on time, right? Everything. Thank you so much. I'm very proud of that. I know pride's a sin, but I'm very proud of that. Very proud of that fact. And part of the reason is we get them mostly done, either done or mostly done before we actually start the crowdfunder. Like you probably noticed that Krey cover that you were showing. It's not colored yet. Jeremy, the colorist, is actually having. I've seen a rough draft of the colors, but he's having computer issues, so I haven't been able to get the file from him. Right. So we'll be finished in time for me to ship the books. I don't have any concerns about that. Right. We'll be finished in time for us to fulfill on time. And so that will be once this one will be 18 of 18, right? That's just one thing. We plan to continue to crowdfund every other month is what we've been doing, right? And that gives us the reason we do every other month is that gives us time to get the books printed and shipped, fulfilled about the time. As you notice, I said this one's done, right? This was our last one. This one's done. And we're running the next one now, because I know there are some people out there who are like, I don't have my last one yet. I'm not sure I'm going to back you. Now, folks who've been around since the very beginning know that, look, these guys have done 16 before. I've got all my books. They're going to deliver. So they're confident. But new people are kind of like, I don't know your last 17 Kickstarters. How do I know that you're going to deliver? I get that. I totally get that. So what we try to do is make sure that we deliver the previous Kickstarter at least before we finish. I'd like to do it before we start. That's not always possible, right? But at least before we finish the next Kickstarter. So if you're one of these who backed this one, you're like, okay, I got my book now. I can back the next one. We do plan to go to traditional distribution, but we haven't gotten there yet. And part of the reason for that is we're waiting till we have a couple of series finished so that we can be in the catalog every month. One of the things that we've kind of figured, one of the things that's a problem for a lot of small press publishers is that you'll be in the catalog one month, and if you're not there the next month, the retailers are like, they'll forget you, right? Then you're back the next month and they'll just overlook you. So we decided a long time ago about getting into the catalog. We're like, okay, well, let's don't get into the catalog until we've got a couple of series finished. That way we can go issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4. Issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, trade. Issue 1, issues. So every single month there'll be a Silverline offering, and the books will be done. So we're not going to have to worry about producing it because we kickstarted them. And so the books will be done so that we can get them shipped out traditionally to comic shops nationwide, worldwide, I guess. So that's the plan.
That sounds like an excellent idea. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of myself, and sure, maybe the person who's watching or listening to this, hearing about these plans that you have moving forward, are going to support you as well. Because, in every dark cloud, there's a silver lining.
That's right.
So that's where that's where you find folks at Silverline Comics come in. Once again, we're talking with editor and publisher of Silverline Comics, Roland Mann, here on And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this with all 600 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after listening or watching this episode. I guarantee if you have any questions for Roland Mann, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. We're going to be looking at that and taking a look at that as best we can throughout the course of the rest of the show. So how about this one here, Roland? Any special memories for you being at conventions or other events, whether you are there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite convention memories, okay, is one of my very first San Diego Comic Cons. Okay,
The WrestleMania of all Comic Cons, yeah.
Yes. I want to say this was either 90 or 91. I can't remember the exact year. I probably could do some research and look it up. But I was slated to. I was still a rookie in the industry, and I was slated to sign autographs at the Malibu booth at a certain time, right? And so I'm there that morning, and I'm looking. They have a board up on the wall that says here's who's autographing and what times are going to be there, right? And I noticed that I don't remember what time it was. I'm just gonna say 1 o'clock. And I noticed that with me is Joe Kubert. And I turned around and asked I said, am I signing autographs with Joe Kubert? And they're like, yeah, is that okay? I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's more than okay, of course, right? And so, as I'm a rookie, I show up early. I get there about 20 minutes before it started, and I'm just kind of hanging out at the booth, chit chatting with everybody, and looking at some of the stuff they've got. They've got little freebie, little cards, signature cards for me to sign there, so fans can come up and get a signature card. So a few minutes before the time to start, I sit down. Right, Joe Kubert's not here, but he's on my left. And there's a line already formed for Joe Kubert, right? There's 15, 20 people. I can't remember. There's at least a line, right? I can't see around the corner there. And nobody in line for me, of course, but there's a line for Joe Kubert, and we're just sitting there. I'm just sitting there kind of, people have their Kubert books waiting for him. Just a few minutes before time to start, Joe Kubert walks in. We say really quick, hello, how are you? I'm Joe Kubert. I'm Roland Mann, and that kind of thing. And he immediately, very pleasant, but he immediately focuses on the people in line there. And he even starts to sign before he sits down. But he sits down, starts signing, right? All these people are coming through. And I get some spillage from him. So people get something signed and they're like, oh, who are you? And they'll stop, talk to me. And so I got some spillage from Joe Kubert. There were people come up for me as well, but I mean, they were all there for Joe, right? And so a tiny little break comes in signing, and I lean over to him and I say, Mr. Kubert, I just want to let you know it's such an honor to be signing autographs next to you. I kid you not, Joe Kubert elbows me. He goes, kid, the honor's all mine. And I'm like, I can go home now. I'm good, right? That's probably one of my most fond memories at a comic book convention.
Oh, that is truly amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We do greatly appreciate it. I want to let you know, and for you who may be watching or listening to this, that this episode of And I Quote, and every episode of And I Quote, I should say, is indeed powered by pod decks. Now, pod decks are unique interview questions as well as episode starting prompts in the palm of your very own hand. So whether you're a new podcaster or existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience or get more engagement, you're going to want to check out poddecks.com. Use code Ryan10, that's RYAN10, Ryan10 for 10% off your first order. You're not going to want to miss out on that opportunity. So with that being said, Roland Mann, if you could try out a job for a day just to see if you like it, which job would you choose?
Ooh. Any job, or does it have to be in the industry?
No, it could be any job in general.
Oddly enough, probably an electrician. There's something about electricity that fascinates me. The way it works, the way it's a little bit dangerous. You don't want to touch the wrong button or you'll fry yourself. I mean, obviously we're here because we have electrical powered, gizmos and gadgets. That's probably, if I look back, I probably, instead of being a programmer, I probably should have gone to study electricity instead of programming. It was the math and the programming that killed me. But electricity just fascinates me. It's like, how does that make that work? It's you can't hold it, I mean, I can hold this piece of paper. I can't hold electricity. How does power work like that? And probably electrician.
There you go. There you go.
I have never been asked that before. That's the first time. That's a super original question, and I love that.
Thank our good friends over there at Poddex. Once again, poddex.com. Use that promo code Ryan10 to get 10% off your order. There you go. You never know what you're going to get.
Very cool.
With that being said, what is the oddest job that you ever took to earn a buck?
Oh my goodness. There's several of them actually. So I started working when I was 13, right? So, and have worked straight ever since. I know early on, I talked about my mom buying comics. After she got me sufficiently hooked on comics, she would only buy so many for me, but I wanted more. Like like every comic book nerd, I wanted more, and so if I in order to get more, I had to earn my own money. And so I started working when I was 13. But probably the oddest job I ever had was one summer I dug ditches. You talk about hard. I worked for veterinarians, scooping poop, cleaning out cages. I delivered flyers one couple of weeks on my bicycle. Rode my bicycle around and delivered flyers. I was never a newspaper guy. I thought about that, but I was never a newspaper guy. But probably the digging ditches. I've sodded my dad's yard one time. Not totally by choice, Dad. If you're listening, I love you. Wasn't totally by choice. And I moved dirt from the backyard to the front yard. So my dad, so a lot of people, when they sod their yard, they put sod. Not my dad, right? My dad's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to put one in every spot. We made a checkerboard, right? So my dad checkerboards his yard. So that was, if you know anything about sod, that leaves holes where the other. So my dad orders a dump truck to put a big pile of sandy dirt in the backyard, which is not where where he sodded, right? And so I had to wheelbarrow a load at a time from the backyard up to fill those holes into the front yard.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, boy, that is a lot of odd jobs to make some money. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do, especially when you're a kid, tender age of 18. Was that a lucky age? I don't know.
Yeah.
But listen, even so, it's great stories. Thank you for sharing that with us. What do you consider is the most important piece of furniture in a house?
The bed. Yeah, absolutely the bed. Lots of things happen on the bed. But even so, you got to rest, right? Without rest, you can't function, right? And so, yeah, I'm going to go bed with that. I like my desk here. I'm at my desk. But I could makeshift my desk, and a lot of people do. But yeah, bed. I'm gonna go with bed. Final answer.
And you're a winner. No, I'm sorry. You didn't win the $1 million. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
I wish we could give that to you, but unfortunately we can't. What we can give you is a great experience that we hope that you are having, as well as you who are watching or listening to this episode of Van Dyke Quote are having. With that being said, many people read what is known as electronic books. Do you think that takes away from the experience?
I do. I don't, I don't think I'm an electronic books hater. So don't misinterpret the answer, but I do think it takes away. There's just something about holding the paper version in your hands, losing your place, when you put the book down, or when you maybe accidentally drop it, you lose your place and you don't know what page number. So you got to flip through. There's also a smell. Books will often, not always, but books will often have a smell, and comic books certainly do. But books can also kind of have that printed smell. You don't get that with I have a tablet. You don't get that with the tablet. You don't have to worry about you can go into the beach. You don't have to worry about getting sand in your book like you do in a tablet, because it could ruin it. It could destroy it. And now there are certainly some advantages to the tablet. You can carry a library on your tablet and not weigh anymore. You can't really easily do that with books. So yeah, I think I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly how the question was worded, but
well, the question was, many people read electronic books. Do you feel that takes away from the experience? That was the question.
So yeah, I think I don't think greatly. I think if you're reading, you're reading. It's not the same as I will say, I will put my little asterisk on here.
Sure.
I think that people who listen to audiobooks, I think that's fine. Don't get me wrong, but don't tell me that you read a book when you listen to it. That's not the same. It is absolutely 1000% not the same.
Yeah, I would venture to say I agree with you, because when people tell me that they read their books through Audible or other programming, such as audiobooks. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're on the go and you just don't have the time to sit still for very long, and you're always on the go with your job or your family, you're married, you got 3, 4 kids, and all that jazz.
Sure.
Like, we get it. People are always on the go. I get it. But at the same time, if you tell me, oh yeah, I read that book. Like, what do you mean you read it? You listened to it. There's a difference.
You
listened to an audiobook, which is a form of enjoying a story, but at the same time, it's not the same as actually reading the book.
Right.
So don't just be basically what Roland and I are trying to tell you. It's like a PSA. Just be careful with your wording when it comes to ebooks, or not ebooks, excuse me, audiobooks. Be careful with your wording. That's all we're saying.
Right. Yeah. And again, I listen to them sometimes when I'm traveling. So I'm not saying that they're not, they don't have some value. Like you said, you're on the go, you're in a hurry, you don't have the time to sound. I get it. I totally get it. But you didn't read it. Someone read it to you.
It's true. It's true. The narrator, or they, had different voices for different characters.
Yeah. And I think that's great. There have been some ebooks that I've really, really, really liked.
See?
But you use different muscles, right? When you read, you're using your eyes. But when you're listening, you're using your ears. So they're completely different things. Again, I'm not besmirching one.
No, there's no right or wrong way to experience a book or a story.
But don't tell me you read it when you listen to it.
There you go. There's your PSA for this week. Moving on, I should say, what is something in life that you really have an appreciation for that most people don't?
History. I don't know if that's the kind of thing that you were looking for, but
you can interpret the question however you want, but the question again was, what is something in life you really have an appreciation for that most people don't?
Yeah, I think it's history, and I came close to being, after I left comics. I went into to college. I was a little bit lost, because I spent the entire decade working full time in comics in the 90s, and when the comic industry crashed in the 90s, and a lot of companies went out of business and that kind of thing, and I kind of quit in 2000, and so I was kind of searching for the new me. Obviously I got back into comics, but I was lost there for a little while because I didn't know what to do. And so I went to graduate school studying to get a master's degree in history. And I didn't quite finish that. I came close, but I didn't quite finish. But the one thing that I have learned over time is Americans in particular don't know history. Now, a lot of them think they do because they listen to the news, and the news told them that this happened and this thing there. But I'm like, that's not true. That's not accurate. Well, I don't know. I don't know where they're getting a lot of this from. And I think some of them just don't care. I remember asking when I first started teaching, which was not long after that. When I first started teaching, one of the books that my class had, talked about family, and family's important to me. And one of the things we were talking about in the class was family, because as it related to the book. And so I asked my students, how many of you know your grandparents? Most of them, 90%, right, raised their hands. I said, how many of you know your great-grandparents? And I didn't mean know them personally. I meant just, could you name them? Could you tell me who they are? Would you believe only a few hands went up? I'm like, you're only talking about, what, 2 generations there? You know, people know their grandparents, but they can't even name their great-grandparents? You know, I mean, I can name my family back 5 or 6 generations. You know,
well, clearly the force is strong in your family, because gee whiz.
And it surprises me that people can't do more of that. Right now, again, you know, I'm not expecting someone to recite 20 generations of family, but you know, people don't even know their great grandparents. How can people not know? And it reminds me of the, you know, I know you've heard this, but it reminds me of the thing: people who forget history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And if people can't even be bothered to know who their own great grandparents are, you telling me that these people know history? No, they don't.
Yeah.
No.
That's yeah, it's okay. No, that's a fair point. Thank you for answering the question. But when you do take the time to sit down and learn about your family's history, whether it's your great grandparents or generations before that, or another word, or in another way of looking at it is, you know, history of whatever country or place that you're living in, even your neighborhood or the county or the state, whatever, Biff Tannen will take one good look at you and say, you know your history. Very good. So with that being said, we want to take this opportunity to thank Roland Mann of Silverline Comics for being our guest this week on this episode of And I Quote. Roland, thank you so much for being with us. Where can the person watching or listening to this follow you online and everything that you have coming up? What do you got?
Yep, you can find me on almost all the social media platforms as Roland Mann. I think I'm on Twitter as Man Roland, but you just look for a caricature. It looks just like me. It has my face and my glasses and my goofy smile, right? But yeah, you can find me on all the social media platforms. You can also find me with Silverline at www.silverlinecomics.com. And our team streams three times a week. We're on YouTube and Facebook Live and on Twitch. We have a Sunday group, which is the one that I stream with, but we have a Tuesday night stream that caters more towards our West Coast people. For their time zone, they're 8 to 10 West Coast time. So that makes it really late for us East Coasters. And then we have the Wednesday Whammers on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. as well. So they're all 8 p.m. Sunday and Wednesday are 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday is 8 p.m. Pacific time. So Silverline is where you can find me most of the times if you don't find me on social media. But yeah, look me up, find me, send me a request, a like, follow, whatever. I usually almost always reciprocate. So yeah, and just do that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us here,
Thank
Roland
you for
Mann.
having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely fun. Thank you so much for being with us. Once again, my name is Ryan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. And there's a link to my link tree in my bio where you can find all the other podcasts that I'm doing, including this one, which is known as And I Quote. It's on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you check that out. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And also, I want to let you know about something we're doing next week for a very special event on Wednesday night, May 25th. 2022, one of the greatest and most popular pieces of cinema in history turns 45. That's right. Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Star Wars turns 45, and we are going to celebrate that with an anniversary watch-along. Now, get this, though. There is a catch to this, Roland. We're going to be watching the original theatrical cut from 1977. No special editions. No, Greedo shot first editions. No. We're watching the Han shot first original version of Star Wars. And we want to see you there. Dig up your copy, whether you have it on VHS, DVD, or if you have a copy of the despecialized editions of the Star Wars trilogy. We're going to be watching the original Star Wars. Before it was called A New Hope, it was simply called Star Wars. Join us Wednesday night, May 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at It's Nerd Culture on the Facebook, YouTubes, the Twitch, all of it. It's going to be there, and we want to see you there. Dig up your copy, watch the movie with us, and share your favorite memories of Star Wars, whether it's the original film or the trilogy or the franchise as a whole. Drop those comments, drop those thoughts in the live chat during the course of that broadcast Wednesday night, May 25th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're not going to want to miss it. Also, if you want to get some killer looking swag for yourself or your friends or your family members, visit our friends over there at theradbear.com. They got some great swag from your favorite properties, whether it's Power Rangers, whether it's Stranger Things, whether it's The Neverending Story, whether it's your favorite anime properties, comic book properties. Check them out, theradbear.com. Use the promo code Ryan10. That's Ryan10, RYAN10, for 10% off your order. You're not going to miss out on that. I guarantee it, as a wise person once said. But even so, once again, thank you so much for being a part of this episode of And I Quote. We put out these episodes. We do our best to entertain you who are watching or listening to this. So thank you so much for your support. We cannot do it without you. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe, and life is better when reading. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Join author Gary Zeiger for an animatic short film based on his breakaway Stingray novel series. Watch this animatic short based on the novel Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever at stingrayseries.com. In Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever, Captain Epsilon is putting the band back together to rescue his protege's little sister from the evil conglomerate, while keeping his state-of-the-art warship Stingray out of their hands. Watch as the adventure unfolds in the groundbreaking animatic short at stingrayseries.com. Then, join the crew of Stingray with the next novel in the series, Stingray Prophecy, where Captain Epsilon and Dr. Zubre are pivotal players in an ancient prophecy. Can they reunite the people of two worlds before they destroy each other? To learn more, visit stingrayseries.com. Author Cindy Kep is writing on the edge. Books include Remnant in the Stars, The Loudest Actions, Lines of Succession, Mindstorm, Condemned Courier, the Yerushalayim series, and Animal Eye. Find author Cindy Kep at CKOEPP.com today.
high-flying action. Choose death-defying escapes. Choose spine-tingling thrills. Choose nail-biting intrigue. Now's your chance to choose the adventure. The Captain Hawkland Adventures. Available on Amazon.com.